if you're someone who's always go, 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 until you learn this, you'll continue to burn yourself out. This is something that has taken me years and years to learn, and even still, I find myself slipping back into these habits of just hammering my foot on the accelerator, just go, 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 fill my plate up with as much as I possibly can until I burn out, until I have a seizure, until someone says like, hey, Harrison, you need to stop what you're doing, otherwise you're going to burn yourself into the ground, have a fit, and you're going to be good to nobody. Welcome back to the Be Better podcast, guys. I'm your host, Harrison Orr. I am a father, husband, owner of medicinal mushroom brand Primal Energies, as well as an online men coach who's helped guys beat burnout, beat stress, have high energy so that they can be better role models for themselves, partners, kids, and also just be better in business. And I was reinforced this lesson yesterday by two of my mentors separately. And so, when you get told the same thing by different people completely separately, that it might be a message worth listening to, especially if it's coming from people that you hold in a high regard, that you often take advice from, or you value their opinion very highly, in your life and your endeavors. And so if you're someone like me that is just go, 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 like you always need to be moving, and if you're not making the kind of progress that you'd like to be at the speed that you'd like to, instead of maybe taking a more tactical approach or trying something else, you just ram the foot on the accelerator. Like, how do I do more? Which for me used to be, I would get less sleep, I'd have more coffee. So I would wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning, go straight to my desk to do whatever work it was that needed doing, have my coffee, just work as much as I possibly could. And at the complete disregard for my nervous system, for my mental health, for like everything else, and just become this stressed, irritable, on edge, just mess, basically. And that's not fun to be around. And this is one of the first times I've pushed myself to that space since having my son. And so on top of that, you've then got still the navigation of being a parent and all the unknowns that kind of come with that. So it's not a smart place to put yourself in deliberately. And so if you're someone that is like that, then I hope this lesson serves you in the way that it served me. And what was brought to my attention, because I thought that was the way to do it. I prided myself on that work ethic, that I'm a man of action, that I get shit done, that I couldn't fault myself for not being busy, right? For always doing stuff. But then it was brought to my attention that my way of dealing with tension, that tension of not being in the place that I want to, of not having the result that I want to yet, in like not moving at the space that I want to, like this tension that's creating there, which is becoming like a frustration of mine, which if we call it an outlet for that frustration, is then to take action. This isn't moving fast enough, so I'm going to double down on my efforts in that space and put even more in, because if I put more in, I'll get more results, right? That was my way of thinking. And so when I think about it logically, and I say this to a lot of my clients, and it's funny now that I have to get reminded of this personally, but I know logically that the more that you put in has a level of diminishing returns. Like there is always that point in anything in life that when we put more in, we start to get less out, right? It's the reason why pro athletes don't train 18 hours a day, or 16 hours a day, factoring 8 hours of sleep, right? It's the reason that they don't constantly train, because they have to recover, right? You can't just train the entire day and expect to be able to keep peaking your PBs in how fast or how strong you are, whatever performance-based sport you're in. And so it's the same with every other output. Like we can only get out in terms of like the results that we're striving for as much as we allow our body and our mind to recover to be able to be effective in that space. So, which is funny considering my old approach used to be get less sleep, which will diminish that ability to be effective, to have energy, to have mental clarity, to do all the things necessary for that high amount of production. And then when we stack that on top of just back to back endless work, no play, no breaks, none of that stuff, then we end up doing a lot of things, but not very effectively. Like we load ourselves up with so much work, and I'm saying we, but I'm really talking about, me. But if this relates to you, then I hope this is hitting home as well. Then we put so much onto our plate and feel busy, but unless we're tracking the results, then how do we know that what we're doing is working? We're putting all this time and energy into things, doing lots of stuff, but how often do we actually take a step back and then recognize, is that the best opportunity for me right now? Is that the best use of my resources? Resources being time, energy, and money. Is that the best utilization of those for the result that I need right now? Like, am I just trying to be busy for the sake of being busy? And this was a good reminder for me, both having those conversations yesterday and also in sharing this with you, is that those reminders, like that lesson of identifying what is the biggest task. Like, there's no point being busy for the sake of being busy, because not only do we then often get less done, what we do get done is of a lower standard, but also, and most importantly, we end up stressing ourselves out. Like, especially if some of those actions maybe aren't in alignment with our values, our bigger goal, we just see them as the short-term fix, the short-term way to get a quick win, then that's going to burn us out. That's going to create stress, create frustration, and we're going to be in that state where we're very reactive of things coming up and we're going here, there, and everywhere, and then we're just in reaction mode, and we end up using probably a lot of stimulants to get through our days to function, because we can't afford to not be highly energetic and functioning at our best. So we get poor sleep, we take more stimulants, we roll through the day, and then no matter what you do for your sleep, you wake up feeling, God, I'm tired, I'm so groggy, like I didn't sleep well last night. And that results in more coffee, more stimulants, and that cycle kind of continues. And so now what I found useful, and I've called on one of my mentors for this, so I'm now going to run things by him before I go out and put time and energy into anything, just to make sure that I know I'm not seeing things through the lens of my bias, which is what got me into this position, which we all do. So that's why it's handy to have a mentor, just FYI. But also using the protocol in the book, 10x is easier than 2x. And so I love this protocol, this approach, this way of thinking, because it really helps cut out a lot of that stuff. Like a lot of that stuff that, I was doing that was kind of keeping me busy, taking up my time. It was falling into that 2x category. And if you haven't read the book or you haven't heard me talk about that concept before, it's the simple concept that if you wanted to 2x your results, right, in anything, 2x your results in terms of your weight loss, in terms of your financial growth, in terms of like any of your business, your personal, your relationship stuff, anything, like if you wanted to just double it, there you could probably list pages and pages and pages of things that you could do that would get that result. But the thing is, a lot of those things would get you that result, but not much more. So if all you're after is 2x, awesome. Pick from one of those things. But the problem with having so many options is it becomes overwhelming. And a lot of people then, myself included, don't see any of those choices in what they pick through to the finish to get that result before jumping onto something else. They see it halfway through, hit a blockage, stop getting results, and then change protocols, right? And keep changing and changing instead of seeing it all the way through. But the premise on the 10x is easier than 2x is that if you wanted to 10x your results, 10x your health, your financial growth, your business growth, your personal growth, relationships, anything like that, if you wanted to 10x it, there are very few things that would get you that kind of return, right? Like when we're talking about 10x, we're talking about like fundamental pillars of that thing, right? Fundamental pillars of your health, looking at things like, obviously your nutrition, but also your nervous system. So your stress and your mental health, your sleep is a big one, like your hormones, like looking at the fundamentals of how you operate as a human being before you go and worry about if you're going to do keto or intermittent fasting or caveman diet, carnivore, whatever. Those things are just the top 10%. Like, fuck around with those later, but they're not going to be the big movers for most people. And so it's the same with everything else. Is this thing that I'm about to put my resources in, my most valuable time, money, and energy into, is it going to generate that kind of return for me? And if it's not, is where else could I spend my time? And this is the part that I struggle to conceptualize. I know, and I say this to people, but I struggle to implement this myself, is sometimes that time is best spent doing nothing productive at all. And I'm going to define productivity in this situation by, either for your health or for like revenue generating activities or growing the business or anything like that, like a measurable thing, right? What would be a better use of that time, or could be a better use of that time, might just be taking an early mark and go to the beach with your kid. Go for a walk with your family, go to the park. Or if you like to read, just switch off from your screens. Stop trying to put so much effort into whether it's ads or the website or the landing page or the sales script or, into something else that you're kind of playing with at the moment that doesn't need that amount of attention. Like once you've done the thing, leave it. Leave it. Decide on a time frame in which this needs to be reviewed. So for me at the moment, it's ads. So based on our ad spend at the moment, we'll get our enough data to make any iterations or adjustments in about 3 to 4 days. So now that I've launched ads, awesome. I'm not allowed to even open Ads Manager or look at it for the next 3 to 4 days. Don't bother, right? Because otherwise I'll sit there playing with it and then I'll just end up taking up so much more time. And when all that time is spent, I guess, focusing on things that aren't getting a result, ends up burning us out, or can do. And so I know it can be hard to do because I'm still learning this, as I said myself, but putting time into that calendar and knowing when, okay, I'm no longer being effective or productive. Stop trying to slam our head against the wall and think, well, I need to get this done, I need to do this. Sure, there's times when we have a deadline, but other times, if we're thinking bigger picture, like the people that get the best results in anything aren't the people, whether it's in health or business or the relationships, aren't the people that go super hard for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and then absolutely fry themselves because they spent every waking moment doing it and did nothing other than that and sleep. Like, that's not sustainable for most people, especially once you have a family. So the people that are the most successful in anything are the people that do the basics well. So, those 10x activities, they do them well and they do them consistently. And so when you identify what those 10x activities are, do them consistently, find out a cadence for you, whether it's daily or weekly, whatever it is. Okay, this block of time is when I'm doing this thing, and that's it. You'll naturally get better at it, get more effective at it, and more productive in that time space. The more that you do it, the more consistently you do it. But when you look at the long play, okay, well, that's something that I can maintain every week for the next year, 2 years, plus, until my circumstances change, basically. And that is has a much higher likelihood of success rather than, well, I'm just going to go as hard as I can for as long as I can. That's going to be tough on your mental health, on everything. And then it gets frustrating. There's so many other things that come in the way along that journey. And so I'm using this as a bit of a reminder for myself to take some of that time, because naturally, I don't know about you, but how much better do you work when you're not so stressed? When you're not operating from a place of scarcity or desperation or frustration even. Like, sure, sprinkles of those emotions and those states might be helpful in certain circumstances, just to get that little oomph and get that edge and like get a little bit more, get a little bit hungrier to take that action to get that result. But if that's the constant state we're operating all the time, it's very unlikely to happen. And so I'm not going to go into the energetical side of things in terms of law of attraction or frequencies or anything like that, because I don't know enough I believe in them, but I don't know enough about them to talk in depth on them. But I believe that when you're acting from a place of scarcity, you're focused on the negative, you're focused on the desperation side of things, then everything feels harder. Nothing comes easy. But then when you're in alignment with what you're trying to do, how you're going to do it, and how you're executing things, and just the things that you do in life, things naturally seem to come easier. And whether they do or they don't, it's just a perspective, but nothing else is real in life. Our perspective is whatever we decide that it is. And so when you can identify, I'll wrap this up now, when you can identify that line where you are no longer effective, right? I use my Aura Ring, the data on that, my sleep quality, my heart rate variability. That gives me very good data to be able to say how primed I am for a big day of work or not, same as in the gym. So I use that. If you're thinking about getting some bio-tracking equipment, whether it's the Aura Ring or the Whoop Strap or anything like that, highly recommend it. If you're going to use the data and act on it, highly recommend it, because then you can adjust your, outputs and your days based on those levels, and also then get feedback as to if you are redlining it too much, you're on a downward trend, your sleep's turning to shit, your heart rate variability is tanking through the floor, then you can dial it back a little bit so you pull yourself out before you get into that red zone where you're burnt out, getting sick, and just absolutely fried. You can dial it back before you get there so that you can recorrect, make some changes so that maybe you get better sleep, maybe you take more time off, steady the ship so that you can keep going for longer. Play the smart game, play the long game, rather than just trying to be that shooting star that goes hard and fast for a few weeks, few months, and then just burns himself out and then has to reevaluate and pick up the pieces, right? So find what that is for you. Sprinkle in those elements throughout your day or throughout your week of just shit that you like, stuff that's either going to make you decompress, just be present with yourself or the people around you, whatever it is that is for you. And I know that's not easy to do if you're someone that is go, go, go all the time, because we love being busy, we love doing stuff, and we don't feel like we're productive or efficient if we're not using every second of the day. But it has diminishing returns. And I hope that you don't have to learn this the hard way like me. But if maybe you've already learned this a few times and maybe you needed this as a reminder like I did. So I hope this serves as that for you, and you can adjust your schedule if you need to, so that when you are working, you are in flow, you can be effective, you can be productive and not burn yourself out, so that you can live better, be better, get better results, and be at the highest potential that you can possibly be for as long as you can possibly be, if not forever. All right, that's the goal. So I hope this serves as that reminder. And like always, I want you to take action on something from this. If you feel like you are burning out, then maybe dial it back. Plan something maybe this afternoon or later in the week that's just that little bit of a reset for you. Maybe it's, the weather's getting warmer here in Sydney. Maybe it's a beach day. Maybe you go and get a massage or do a float tank, or, whatever it is for you personally, that's a bit of a self-care, bit of a me experience. Sprinkle something like that in. Maybe find some meditation, journaling, whatever it is that allows you to just reassess why you're doing the things you're doing. Are you as effective as you'd like to be? How are you measuring that you're being effective and stuff like that? So we take that feeling component out of it. And then you've got data to be able to say, well, I'm actually not being as effective here, and this is why I'm going to make that changes. Because if you're data driven like I am, then you need that to be able to make those changes, because we're not so good at listening to our feelings. So make one of those changes. I'd love to hear how it goes. If you want to share your experience with me in doing that, I'd love to hear it. You can find me on Instagram in the show notes below. Otherwise, have an incredible day, my friend. I will see you next time. And remember, don't be sorry, be better.